the first of which will be Graham Morris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver. I do appreciate you calling me in this debate, and it's always a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And can I begin by commending the work of the chair of the Select Committee and the way in which not only he's gone about the gathering of evidence for the inquiry, but the way in which he has actively promoted the response from government and the conclusions of the committees, to be commended for that. And I'd also like to record on my behalf, and I'm sure on behalf of all the members of the Transport Select Committee, our thanks to the members of staff and the subject specialists and all the support staff who've been involved in preparing this third report of the current session. And I would like to point out, I believe the Chair already did it, this isn't the first Transport Select Committee report scrutinising all lane running motorways. And while I welcome the government's acceptance of the Transport Select Committee's recommendations, safety risks on all lane running motorways, such as those raised by our predecessor committees in 2016, should have been addressed before those motorways were rolled out. My own party, and in fact me personally, I've long felt that the government needed to halt the rollout of smart motorways, and indeed there is considerable evidence identified through the committee that there are serious flaws, and it's a tragedy that so many lives were lost before action has been taken.
Would my honourable friend give way?
I'll happily give way to my honourable friend.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, but there is a slight danger in conflating two terms of smart motorways and all-lane running motorways, because there are smart motorways, as indeed with the M42, key part of the motorway box around Birmingham, which is absolutely vital for the economy of this country, which works. And therefore we need to differentiate and look at what has worked and why that wasn't followed through. But it's enormously important, not just for those travelling to work, but given that this country and its economy runs on its trucking industry and its drivers, as we found out recently, it's hugely important that we may keep that flowing through. And that, I think, is what we've got to look at extending, rather than just wrapping all these together in one framework.
Thanks. I'm grateful for that intervention, and that's a reasonable point. I certainly wouldn't disagree with my honourable friend. But I would point out that our third inquiry was launched in response to concerns that the committee had received about the increasing number of fatalities, and criticism indeed from professionals, including coroners, about the risks that arise when we don't have hard shoulders, and indeed hard shoulders are used as an additional lane. And as we've heard in the Chair's opening remarks, the number of miles of motorway without a hard shoulder increased from 172 miles to 204 miles between 2017 and 2019. And over these 2 years, deaths on motorways without a permanent hard shoulder increased from 5 to 15. At least 38 people have been killed on smart motorways in the last 5 years. And on one section of the M25 outside London, the number of near misses has risen 20-fold since the hard shoulder was removed in April 2014. It is thanks to the dedication of bereaved families, I believe, that the rollout has been paused. As part of the committee's inquiry, we heard some of the most harrowing and moving evidence from the families of those who'd tragically died on smart motorways. And this testimony, I believe, was very valuable. And I want to personally thank all of those who gave evidence in person and in writing. All lane running motorways were, I believe, primarily a money-saving exercise. I think we've skirted around the issue earlier. And their rationale, they were introduced to add capacity while delivering savings on capital, maintenance and operational costs compared with previous smart motorway designs. The aim was to achieve the savings required by the 2010 spending review while maintaining Highways Agency safety standards. It was clear that they could reduce the costs of implementation by up to a quarter. However, it's now evident that cost-cutting has played a part in the utterly inadequate rollout of smart motorway features. This has put lives at risk. Many of the problems with the safety of all lane running motorways remain for years after the original TSC report. I'll give way to my honourable friend.
Thank you, Mr. Holder, and can I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way. I'd just like to say to the honourable gentleman, National Highways has been given £27.4 billion this year. Would he not agree with me that maybe it might not be such a case of shortage of cash in National Highways, but more of a lack of focus on the need for safety?
I think there are some important questions that need to be asked, and I do think agencies and individuals need to be held to account for the decisions that have been made. It's staggering that the first smart motorways went live and basic standard safety features that have been referred to both in the statement this morning and a little earlier, that can detect broken down vehicles in live lanes, still aren't fully implemented. This smart technology to detect the broken down vehicles. Emergency refuge areas are located too far apart. CCTV cameras on smart motorways are not routinely monitored. I found that an incredible admission or fact that the committee uncovered. Compliance and evidence of red X signs remain problematic. Cameras capable of enforcing compliance are not going to be fully rolled out until September of 2022, and as the chairman alluded to, the committee was originally promised that that deadline would be 6 years earlier, that those cameras and that technology would be implemented in 2019. Stop vehicle detection will not be rolled out across all lane running motorways, what we've now been told, until September of this year, 6 years after the Transport Committee were told the technology worked and that it would be part of the standard rollout for these schemes. Emergency services and traffic patrol officers still struggle to access incidents in a timely manner, especially during periods of heavy congestion. And of course, now the introduction of all electric vehicles brings a whole new dimension into potential choke points and RTAs if such vehicles were to run out of charge on a all-lane running motorway. The committee's report makes clear that engagement and clear communication with the public about smart motorways would be key to their safe and successful rollout. So this issue of education is a key one. However, almost half of the British public do not know what to do in the event of an emergency on a smart motorway. Now, Mr Hollowborn, we don't have any smart motorways or all-lane running motorways in the North East. But my constituents do travel down to London and use these smart motorways and all-lane running motorways without a hard shoulder. So I think it's absolutely vital, and it was a profound mistake that the first public information awareness campaign wasn't launched until 2021, years after smart motorways came into operation. We know smart motorways in their current form, coupled with inadequate safety standards, are not fit for purpose and are putting lives at risk. I believe ministers were wrong to press ahead when there was strong evidence warning that safety-critical features should be introduced as the sections were being developed. I'm pleased the government have acknowledged the committee's concerns and have paused the rollout of all-lane running smart motorways until 5 years of safety and economic data is available and improvements have been delivered and independently evaluated. In conclusion, Mr Hollowborn, I would like to ask the Minister a number of questions. It does seem that it's not illogical that hundreds of miles of smart motorway will continue to be used, but what about the remedial work? How is that being programmed? Does the Minister agree that the rollout programme as it has been delayed because of the delays in installing the relevant technology to detect broken down vehicles, has risked lives, and the continuing use of hundreds of miles of smart motorways before remedial work is being carried out is a risk to public safety. And will the Minister and the Department for Transport engage with the committee, that's the Transport Committee, to agree what data in particular will form part of the evidence-gathering assessment over the next 5 years to determine the relative safety of smart motorways? Thank you.
To ensure that everyone gets in.